Hello, everybody. Welcome back. My name's Daniel Gabali. We might have to do a guest Elo marathon session now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do just one game after another, maybe at least 5 games in this video because otherwise I have to keep uploading every game. It's very tedious, you know. Anyway, the first game we're going to look at is a game played by somebody called Babarinde Sabot. And this game was it's actually on my details on the email they sent me. It was on live chess on chess.com, and I'm not sure if he was white or black in this game, but so my guess is what is the white elo and what is the black elo, or what are their online ratings, right? um I could click on the live game, which would tell me. So maybe I'll click on that at the end, which will tell me anyway. The time control was 600. I don't know what it means by 600, but let's have a look at the game anyway. So it's a Caro-Kann. We're going to go through the game quickly, and then we're going to come back at the end and then say what do we think the ratings are. Now, bear in mind that one thing I would say is, was it when they say 600? Was this a correspondence game? I mean, I can find out at the end because sometimes I think with correspondence games, people use engines, right? And even though you're not supposed to, I think a lot of people when they do like not what's called a correspondence game is like daily game, daily move or what they call daily game. I can't remember what it's called. Um, well, the first thing to say, White played. It seems like White played almost perfectly. So, judging by this game, I would find it very difficult to say what White's rating is. But again, it could be a daily game where they're wide up, right? And uh, they just you just know everything. Or it could be a game where, well, firstly, that move is that an option because you are winning a pawn, but then there's bishop there. Maybe you just end up losing material, right? Yeah, you probably can't keep on that knight. So that's probably some kind of move, rook he1. I think c5 I don't like, so I'm kind of downgrading black's elo a little bit because I think I would have been tempted just to castle. Now I'm also not sure about rook he1 either, as is that necessarily the best move because I feel like, I mean, I know that knight e4 they kind of play a lot in these kind of positions, but is it with a bishop on f4? I'm not so sure. Rook e1, interesting move, does weaken h5, so that maybe downgrade it a little bit. c5 I think is risking. I think white exploited it. Knight e5 is a good move. And again, I think black, rook d8 is not a move that I think like a professional player is going to play. It looks too dicey, and white exploited why it was a mistake in the game. So rook d8. If I had to guess on this, I would say that white's over the board rating is about 2100. I mean, sorry, I'm just going to guess their online ratings. I think is over online rate is about 2000 or 2100, and blacks is probably lower by about 200 points, by maybe 90, maybe 1800. That's just my guess, right? No, but again, maybe one player was wide up because all this tactics. It looks a little bit dodgy, right? But rook e6, yeah, king f8 again, king g8, bad move. So that's downgraded. Maybe black is only 1600 online actually. Knight f5, fabulous move because clearly you can't take. So that's a very strong move. But I'm still going to go with my gut instinct that white's about 2000 player. Might be completely wrong. I might be embarrassed when I find out that they're actually 20s, probably higher rated than me online, right? Or maybe they're using Stockfish, in which case they're a 3,400 player. But this felt too straightforward, yeah. So this is all great stuff. Probably rook e8 is not the only winning move. Was that also possible? Actually, this is a blunder, rook e8, because I think you could just win on the spot with this. This is forced checkmate. Oh, you got knight f8. Actually, maybe it's not forced checkmate then. Okay, so maybe that was no better than what white played. Well, I think you're still winning anyway this position because you can go. Oh, I lost some moves here. Bishop g5, for example, is winning. But okay, so possibly it's not winning by. What about this move though? Is that not winning by force? If I go here, oh, that was force checkmate. So white missed a very simple force. So white clearly isn't cheating because it would have surely found queen f7. So again, I think that's downgrading white a little bit. Maybe even 2000's a little bit optimistic. So what I'm going to do now, so I think white's about 2000. I think black's about 1800 online, maybe 1700, maybe 1600, right? I think black's about 1600 online. I think I'm going to downgrade white a little bit. I'm going to say they're 1900 online. Let's have a look at their ratings. Visit link. Let's see if this gives me any clue. No, I was way too high. I'm too optimistic here. White was 1379 and black was 1343. So all I'm getting from this game is that I'm very bad at guessing what people's ratings are. Maybe I should stop this whole series now. Okay. Somebody else sent me a game. Nurali. We've got Nurali Musali. Right. Let's. Oh my god. Okay. There's too many annotations in this. I'll try and upload that game. Right, so all I've got to do is new game. Okay. So I was completely wrong with that game. I thought they were like 1900. They were actually quite very low rated players, 1300 online, right? But white played a good game. I don't think he was cheating. But who knows? You just can't tell these days. But going back to this position, so this is sent in by a player called. He played with black blitz over the board. Oh no, he's already given the answer at the end of the email. So he said white's elo was 1800, black's elo was 2130. So I don't know why you're not supposed to give the ratings. Anyway, thanks for sending me the game, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do that game because he's already given me the ratings. Don't give me the ratings, right? But I'm not even sure about this whole idea, this type of video. Anyway, given how poor I was at guessing the previous game, right? Let's do one more. Let's try and get through as many of these games as possible. Okay, new game. Okay. So this is sent in by a guy called Warren Wilson, 77. So firstly, again, I'm going to use my detective brain here. If he's at Warren Wilson, 77, that means he was born in 1977. Right? Or not necessarily, of course. Maybe he just remembers 77 has been a great year for him. Maybe he had a great year in 77. He went out clubbing, pulled these Swedish models, you know, got like a Nobel Peace Prize, you know, became a famous film director. Warren Wilson reminds me, it's almost like a amalgamation of American presidents. You got Woodrow Wilson, who I believe was a president during the First World War, and then you got Warren Harding, who I believe was one of the shortest reigning US presidents. I think he died in office. He was actually portrayed in that TV series, Boardwalk Empire. Anyway, I digress. So he was white. Does he say he was white in this game? It doesn't mention whether he was white or black. So I've just got to guess the reloads. Well, going on what I saw the last game, I think they were very low rated. The last game, right? Or they were, you know, lowish ratings. So, okay, let's just quickly go through the moves. Yeah, maybe this whole guess elo thing is quite tricky, really, because I'm a GM. I don't care about patzers. You know, what do I care what your bloody elo is? Well, I'm a GM. Yeah. No, it's quite tricky. I think when you know, I mentioned this guy I was coaching just now, and I said, you know, like It's the one thing about it's very difficult to tell how other players think. I can't really get in the head of amateurs why they're making the mistakes they're making. It's very difficult to understand them. And I think the same like with Magnus. He probably if he looked at some of my moves, he's like, why on earth is Gormali playing that move? It's a very strange move. I don't understand that move. Why can't he do what I can do? So it's just very very difficult to understand other chess players. Um, okay, so let's quickly go through. Was this? He said 15 plus 10 rapid. He said. Did White win this game or Black or what happened? It looked like White is going to win if anyone. Was this 15-10 online or was it 15-10 over the board? That's another question. So let's assume, even though it's probably my guess is it's 15-10 online, right? But let's assume that it was over the board, right? Firstly, B6 looks a bit weird, so I don't like that move. Again, it's very difficult to tell, but yeah. So my guess is that Black is probably like a 1600 player maybe, because this is kind of weird. White is probably higher rated. Again, A4 I don't really love because I don't think you're worried about Black going B5 necessarily. It's not a terrible move. A4. I mean, I must admit, actually, I mean, I might have been tempted to go here immediately, but there is a bishop b4 check at the end. And if you castle and Black goes b5, then yeah, this is a problem. That is actually a problem. You probably have to start sucking material here. So this is the kind of plan you want to play, is play e4, right? So actually a4 in that sense. So that's quite a good move. And then Black plays c5, which again is quite a good move. And Black wasn't tempted to leave White with the hanging pawns, which is interesting. I might have been tempted just to go strategically for this position. Queen e2 is a good move. Boris Spassky was said put the queen on e2. Knight e5 again, a good move. Yeah, so White's looking like quite a good player, I must admit. Maybe because I'm a bit scarred from the previous game, I'm assuming everyone's a Patzer now. Sorry if you're watching. I'm joking when I say it. Obviously, a 1300 player is a good player, don't get me wrong, but Knight e5. A lot of people will be watching this video. People were saying this. I can't believe how rude this guy is. I sent him my game, and he's so rude, such a rude person, insulting my chess ability. So knight e5, decent move, yeah. Bishop b4, f4, very aggressive, right? Rook c8. So all this kind of stuff is kind of normal, right? You can see this in high-level Super Grandmaster games, right? The only thing I would say here, Queen e7 looks a bit strange. Again, maybe I'm feeling like it's very tough. I think specifically you can't get the level, unless I'm looking at like a really high level game, I probably can't get the level spot on. So I'm going to guess that these guys are about 1700. No, maybe stronger than that, maybe 1900. I don't know. It's just very hard to say. I would have considered very strongly going knight e4 here. Because I feel like you got that hole on e4, you might as well use it, and it makes sense of the bishop on b7. But Black went queen e7, which looked a bit slow to me. White went a5, which is an interesting move. So again, showing good position understanding, because you're not worried about losing the pawn because you're pushing on, right? And yeah, so we're guessing that Warren Wilson is probably about a 1700 player. Not sure about his opponent. Maybe slightly lower rated. Yeah, this has kind of got a bit random though, because Black went b5 and White didn't take the pawn. Which made an interesting decision not to take the pawn. Because if you take the pawn, you lose the d5 square. So he preferred to get this kind of isolated, which actually made some sense. So making some good decisions here, really. You'd have to say rook f3 looking very scary for Black. F5 though made some sense, right? Maybe F6 was also possible, but then that would allow the sacrifice. So F5, Queen H4. Yeah, but this is like a blunder when you just lose the exchange. It's quite poor, right? So Queen F2 was a good move as well, a good decision. So, you know, White's showing some good stuff here. So again, maybe 1700 is downgraded, but I'm a little bit scarred from the last game how far out I was. Yeah, I mean, I might have been just tempted just to knuckle down it. I mean, black looks worse here, but maybe it's holdable. Queen D8 though loses the exchange. And White played it pretty well after this, I would say. Again, sometimes I think people sending me games they're wired up, right? They're probably using engines. So in that case, I should guess that their ratings are 3800, right? But I'm not sure about this game whether White used an engine because it was. I mean, we could check actually at the end. It's another way to check, like how accurate did the engine think the game was, because that's also a way. But I was kind of cheating a little bit in terms of. But at this point, this looks winning, right? So if we go back to the game, firstly b6 would not be the top move. You normally play here, you would go bishop f5 or you would go e6. b6 is weird, and that's clearly a sign that this player is not very strong. Maybe about 1700 level, maybe lower than that, maybe 1500 level. b3, bishop d3, good move. Yeah, I was just saying that I feel like a4 wasn't necessary, so that was not a good move. So that would downgrade White a bit, because I feel like you know what I was saying about the fear of the only moves. You're going to castle. You may or may not go a4, but you're always going to castle. So you play those moves first, and then you worry about your other moves later. So a4, I'm not loving it. Not loving it. So that was a mistake. And at this point in the game, black is sort of fighting back a little bit, actually. 95. Certainly neither of these players are cheating, judging by the game. Certainly not, absolutely not cheating. I apologise if anyone's watching the video and think that these players are cheating. They're definitely not cheating. So if we look at it with the engine, I think we can see that these players aren't bad, but they're not great. You know, they're kind of probably making too many little errors, and the game's got a slightly random quality to it. So I would say that, as I say, I'm going to stick with my, also taking is better, which is more really obvious, but c5 actually was decent. Again, rook f3 didn't love, and they're not making serious mistakes, but they're making little mistakes, and that was actually a big mistake because of knight b8, which again black failed to exploit. Well, queen h4 was decent, and I misjudged this position because I thought White was better, but in fact, is White even a pawn up here? White's not a pawn up, is he? The material's level, but it doesn't like the weakness on d4. So there's some quite serious mistakes in some ways, but not like outright blunders. So if I'm just judging it with the engine, yeah, I'll probably stick it with my original suggestion. And that's a terrible blunder. So that's knight f4 was a shocking blunder because it just hangs a bishop. I'm saying 1700, but again, I don't know. The guy hasn't given me the information. So I don't know. If you're watching and you're not too offended by my video, please leave your comment down below, and then White hoovering up on after that. So all I can conclude for that game, neither player was cheating. Not sure if it was online or over the board, but I would guess that they're certainly not GM level or even FM or IM level. A game that had a slightly random quality to it. Given that the player was born in 77, or we can assume by his email that he was born in 77, then my guess is he's probably not that strong because he's old, right? He's old like me. He's like only a year younger than me, right? So anyone old is weak, right? That's obvious, right? No, but he's probably, like I'm guessing. I've not heard the day before either. So often, I play a lot of these weekenders. So I probably would have heard the day before. So I guess sort of like a weaker player. maybe about 1700 level online, maybe 1800, but decent in the sense it wasn't making any serious errors. But again, because I was so far out of the previous game, which looked to me like a game a Super Grandmaster would play as white, and turned out to be 1300, I'm very wary of making a guess, but I'm guessing about 1700. Anyway, let's move on to the next game. Let's keep going through these games. Right, let's do another game. I might have to pull the video where I'm doing a shout out. We got a game from Alan Llewellyn. So I'm going to copy that game and then post it in the other. This is a problem, right? So new game, and then paste game. So I'm not sure if you. I'm not going to play for all his games, but Alan Llewellyn sent me these games. I'm not sure whether he's white or black in this game, but I'm going to guess. Okay, let's flip the board. Let's look at it from White's perspective. Maybe he was black. He's given some annotations to this game as well. I mean, it's high level in terms of the theory is there. You know, this is on Lichess. This game was played. It suggests a move g4 has been a mistake because of knight e4. Bishop g7, king g7, g4, rook h8. It said h takes g4 was better. So he's given annotations as well. But are these computer annotations or are they his annotations? So I always say to people, you know, annotate your games without a computer. But he's given personality in terms of exclamation mark and stuff like that. Yeah, but again, it might be computer exclamation marks. We don't know. Again, I don't know. You know, it's very difficult unless I work with this player myself directly. Okay, so eventually we got this. It's quite a long game, this one. It ends in perpetual check. It's very hard to say what the level is, to be honest. I mean, they knew a lot of theory, so that's a good sign. So that's probably a sign that they're quite reasonable players. My guess is about 1900 because the theory is good and the annotations are pretty decent. Maybe 1800. I would say Alan's probably about 1800 FIDE rating. I think I'm vaguely aware of who he is. I know he beat Keith Arkle in a simul. So if he beat Keith in a simul, he must be fairly decent because Keith tends to do well in simuls. So I'm guessing he's about 1800. But there's not much I can say about this game. He's already put the game in. He's put the annotations in. But yeah, I would say he's about 1700. Right. Let's quickly move on to the next game. What other games can we do? The problem is I've been sent emails from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's still 5 more people to do, right? I'm going to get through 2 more and then try and do the other games in a final. But I don't actually. Can you not send me your games because I don't really want to get overwhelmed with emails asking me to play through your game. You know, and if I don't reply to your email, tough. Because that's life, unfortunately. You know, I've got a life. Hi Daniel, love your videos. This is a game from one of my local tournaments I played in. Kind regards, Finn. This is from Finn Cummings. So I'm guessing he was white. And Finn Cummings 2007. So again, younger player, right? So let's new game. Paste game. So was he white in this game? He plays b3. So first he's born in 2007, so that would make him, what year are we in now? 2026. So that'd make him 19 this year, right? So you're going to be 9. Maybe he's already 19 because his birthday's in January. Probably not. There's a 1 in 12 chance that it's in January. So, or whatever it is she's slightly better than 1 in 12 because January's got 31 days. But, you know, it's a good chance that he's not quite 19 yet, but he would turn 19 this year. Finn Cummings, have I heard of the name? Again, vaguely rings a bell. But let's have a look at the game anyway. Let's quickly run through the game and then maybe we'll come back and then have a look at the game. This was played, did he say this was played in an over the board game? He said it was one of his local tournaments. When I said Finn, I was thinking of Finn McCool, right? Finn, wasn't there a Finn McCool or something? Or wasn't there a Finn from The Sopranos, right? Who went out with Meadow Soprano. That was a great series, wasn't it? With the late and great James Gandolfini. Okay, so right. So firstly, White went B3. So my guess is not like a Super GM because Super GMs generally they go B3. Right, I'll move one, but you can't unless your name's Bobby Fischer. So we can downgrade him from Super GM. However, as we've seen in the game, he seems to know quite a lot of theory because this is all kind of theory-ish, right? His opponent also plays quite a lot of theory as well because Queen H4 is quite a good move. I know that's the idea of that is to basically weaken the light squares around the white king. So you throw in the move. You could play Queen E7 immediately, but you decide you're going to weaken the light squares around the white king first. Long time since I analysed this variation, I must admit. Should analyse it again. Knight F3 again. And there are other moves that white can play here, but castles is interesting. Black goes H5, which is a controversial decision. It weakens the G6 square. That would downgrade me a little bit for black. Not loving the move H5, I must admit. I would prefer, I'm not sure what black should play, but I feel like that downgrades black a little bit. I think black is about, if I'd guess, I would say about an 1800 player, and I would say white is about a 1900 player. But again, you know, I'm so far out on some of these, but he shows, this is an over the board game, and he's showing quite a lot of theory. I love this next move, E4. You know, that's you know, dynamic pawn move, isn't it? I mean, there is an argument for saying, well, did you calculate knight H4 because that also looks quite dangerous for, you know, that's the only argument against the move E4 that possibly knight H4 was another option, or that it would have allowed Queen G5. So I'm not sure if that would have been any better anyway. Although you could still go E4 after Queen G5 or Rook H6. You could still go. So you could still go E4 later. But E4 a very decent move. Yeah, probably Black should at some point take that pawn E4. I reckon. Even though it doesn't look very good, that resulting position looks quite bad for Black. I don't really like the way he played in the game. He castled. White took. Yeah, I mean there is an argument maybe of thinking, well, maybe takes and Queen E2 was also possible, the idea coming there, but I'm not sure if black, I think black might be quite happy to cede that. He took there. And again, maybe even you could even think about giving out the exchange here, weirdly. Maybe, but it's probably too much, right? So black took. Was that even a move? And then E4, or is that just, no, that's probably too much, yeah. Probably too much. I mean, it's interesting, but it's probably too much. I mean, I might have been a little bit concerned about that if I was white. That's why I wasn't sure about even E takes D5, was that a good move? But okay, maybe the computer liked it. We'll computer check this at the end as well, because that'll also give us an idea. We'll cheat with a computer check. and e4 was played. And again, maybe a move like there was also possible. No, but then you... Yeah, because I'm not sure you can take because queen a6. Okay, I didn't see queen a6. I thought, yeah, I forgot the knight on g8 was covering the queen. But knight e4... Yeah, felt a little bit... Yeah, and again, rook h6, I'm not in love with, I'll be honest. So there's some a little bit randomness about this game, as well as the fact that there's some quality there as well. Quite a nice idea to go h4 just to open up the white king, but then black quickly falls into this counter attack. Yeah, and I'm not sure about taking. I don't like opening up that diagonal. I would have gone for c5. So I think black is definitely no better than a 1700 player. I would say white is about 1900 maybe. 1800. So my guess is white is about 1800 and black is about 1700. But again, the theory is quite good. So again, if I check with the engine, what's it saying? Do some singing now because I'm getting bored. I was alright for a while. I could smile for a while. But then I saw you last night. You held my hand so tight. E4 is coming as the top move. Knight 4 I mentioned as well. I quite like that. It says D4 is the best. Yeah, didn't like bishop c5. So actually bishop c5 was quite a bad move. And white could have gone for another dot. Wow, I didn't see that, I must admit. D4, yeah, kind of obvious because of Pena. So you should have found that. I mean, I should have seen it as well. I didn't see it either, though. I'm a GM. But again, you know, it's classical time control. They should find that. So king h1, but still, no, king h1 is very strong. And e takes was actually the best move. So I suggested here that bishop g4 is actually coming out as one of the top moves, but not very good for black. But maybe harder to refute, but no, it doesn't like it anyway. Yeah, this is all pants. And I think at this moment white is winning. So white, yeah, knight 4 was not, as again, I might downgrade, like probably a 2300 player is not playing knight 4 there. They're probably going to go like rook e1 or something, 2200 player. Or queen a6 and rook e1, yeah. So yeah, he kind of played out a little bit badly because like rook d1 was also quite poor as well, right? But actually the top move b4, that's tough to spot. And as I suggested, I thought rook h6 looked a bit weird. Yeah, knight h6 was better, and suddenly black was back in the game. And actually g5 wasn't good. So I feel like, yeah, black is at best 1700, and white is probably about maybe about 1800, 1900. So I'd be surprised if they were 2000s, to be honest. Again, I could be way off with all this. It would surprise me. So white ended up winning the game very convincingly. We could look up Finn Cummins' ELO, right? Because he should come up if I Google it. Barkosavi is currently winning Kidlington with 4 out of 4. What did we get last round? Let's hope he wins. Finn Cummins, P-Day. Okay, he's got a feeling. It's 1896, so I wasn't far off, was I? I mean, I wasn't far off, and I think his opponent was probably about a 1700 player. He's actually from Ireland. He's from Ireland. It's in a lovely country of Ireland. You know, it's lovely. I love to go over to Ireland and visit the old country. You know, my relatives in Ireland are lovely people. Actually, my dad's from Ireland. Well, not from Ireland. He wasn't born in Ireland. His grandparents were both born in Ireland. Although I think they met in England, weirdly enough. So by blood, I'm half Irish. That's hence the name Gormley. Right, let's keep going with this. But thanks for sending me that game, Finn Cummins. Obviously a very promising player. He's only about 18 years of age. Strong player for 18-year-old. But I would recommend playing maybe not b3 or move 1 because it's crap. you know, play maybe mainline systems like 1d4, stuff like that, e4, because you know you can only get so strong if you keep playing these avoidance systems. Right, let's keep going with this. Let's do another couple of games, then we can do. Have we done Jeffrey Byron? Yeah. This is by Jeffrey Byron. Byron. He doesn't have a year in his. Very clever. Doesn't have a year in his emails, so I can't guess that he's an old person or he's a young person. But I would guess with a name like Jeffrey Byron, he's probably quite old. The name gives it away, right? Because no one's ever called. You know, you never call anyone Jeff these days. Does anyone ever have a baby and call him Jeff? Of course they don't. Actually, my brother-in-law's called Jeff. But Byron, Brian, it's actually Brian. I mean, is there a Byron as well as a Brian? Because when I think Brian, I think of like, wasn't there a famous bowls player called David Bryan, who was like a world-class bowls player? That's always what I think when I hear the name Brian. Anyway, let's get on with this game. So how do we enter? Let's do a new game. Pace game, right? So this game, what was he, white or black? He was white. And now I've got to guess the elos. So were they stronger than the previous? But he's gone for bishop b5, which is what the engine loves now. It loves bishop b5, cloud engine. So now he goes d3, bishop g4. This is all very solid play. A little bit boring, this position, but I think you said it was over the board, right? Rook b1. First, yeah, okay, let's just keep, we'll come back to all this later. And then we'll discuss like, how good do we think these moves were. Were they any good or were they crap? King f2. What happened there? Was it a draw or was it black resign? I mean, I assume it's a draw, right? Because he would probably thought it was going to be a perpetual. Oh, but no. After Queen h4, you go King g1 and black resigns, right? I assume. Okay. Anyway, let's go through the entire game again, and we'll cheat at the end with the engine, and then. Yeah, so firstly, you can go h3 instead of castling just to prevent this plan of bishop g4. So I think bishop g4 is not a bad idea for black, just to get rid of some material. Knight d7 again makes sense. So this is quite high level stuff with e5. So they've clearly got some quite good understanding. So I'm guessing there are at least sort of 1700, 1800 players, but again, that might be way off. Who knows? I'm not really convinced by Rook b1 though. Rook b1, I'll be surprised if Rook b1's a top move. I mean, I understand the idea, but I think you want to develop the bishop, but it looks a bit slow. Not loving Rook b1. Yeah, and again, Queen d2. I'm immediately thinking, why aren't you moving the knight immediately? Why are you bothering to move the queen? Now, I understand that plan is a standard plan to go Queen d2, bishop h6. But why not just go knight d2 and then the knight can come around c4, go f4? I don't know. I'm not sure whether Queen d2 was the best move. And again, I think as black here, I would seriously think about just casting, just getting out of dodge. But no, a5 looks reasonable. Castling, yeah. So bishop h6. At some point, black should try and put the knight on e6. Now, whether he ever gets the opportunity to do that, I don't know. But I mean, could have even considered it here, maybe. Like knight f8 would have been interesting. Because generally, you want to put the knight on e6. Now, white does have a alternative plan going c3, b4. Or alternatively going f4 anyway. f4 takes, knight e6 is a line, but I don't really see the problem there for black. If you go f4 and I take, and then you put the knight on e6, is that not okay for black? But he castled. f4 was played. So I think black's played slightly inaccurately. f5 though looks like a reasonable move, actually. That's a good move. Queen f4. I'm surprised he put the f rook on c8. Again, that's a move that would like downgrade black in my opinion, because this looks very weird to put that rook when that rook is defending f5 and controlling the king side. Why aren't you using that rook? So again, that's downgrading me. I'm thinking black's a 1700 player, so he's going down from 1800 to 1700, maybe 1600. I don't know. Like I say, it's very hard for me to guess. I can't understand how amateurs. Why do amateurs play the moves they play? They're so bad. Why? Why do they play the rubbish they play? I don't understand what their level is. Who cares whether it's 1200 or 1400 or 1600 or 1800? They're all crap, crap, crap. I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. You're watching this. I'll be honest. You know, we've all got different levels. We've all got different levels. But yeah, it's slightly surprising some of the decisions that are made. So rook d8. So at this point, black is actually doing well, but like, why did he ever move the rook from f8 in the first place? So it was a very, very strange decision, in my opinion. So at this point, I would say that black is fine. Yeah, and I think around about here, maybe black started to blunder, because it looked like, okay, the e pawn is scary, I must admit. I mean, there is an idea of going, but here, could you? Well, rook f5, queen c6, I suppose, is the problem, isn't it? It's actually not so simple to solve that issue. Maybe right here it actually went wrong. Like first, why don't you just take the pawn? You know, I keep mentioning this captures and checks. Why aren't you taking the pawn? That pawn is a danger. Get rid of it. Get rid of that bloody pawn. Right? Queen f7, move the king. So what? You know, you should be taking that pawn. But maybe actually thinking about it now, he's worried about rook e1, which actually does make sense. Maybe that was what he's concerned about. Yeah, because then you're going to get queen f7 and then rook e7. So actually, maybe taking the pawn is a bloody blunder. It's a bloody blunder. But maybe could I go? Yeah, I feel like black needs to defend well here. Like rook f8 is one option. You're not afraid of the endgame. I think you're more than fine the endgame. So white's probably going to take this pawn. And now you trade. And now you've got rid of some of the attacking material. But again, might not be enough, because there's still queen b7 followed by rook f7. So that's still quite scary. So, although there's checks, isn't there? Oh, okay. So after check, you're probably not going to go to the back. No, you can't check there. Sorry, that was a mouse slip. Queen check, king here. So this is quite a forcing line, very concrete. So at the moment, material's equal. But the point is that after rook f7, you have check, and then you have check again. I think you're going to make a draw. So black seemed to get into trouble around about this point, because, I mean, maybe even that is a move. I don't know. You know, so queen f6 you can take, and then king f7, so it doesn't really help. But yeah, e6 is a good initiative move, because you understand you can't take because of queen f8, mate, and you have ideas of rook queen f7. I mean, is queen f7 immediately a move? I'm not sure. Probably not. But queen f7 I would also be a little bit afraid of, because after take with a rook, if you go here, oh, actually you can just, yeah, this is nonsense, because I can even go here actually, because I was thinking after, but there's also rook e6 is also possible as well. But I'll probably go rook b4 just to keep the rook out of 7th. But it's something that you would consider, isn't it? So white went rook de1, which again, clever move, because his line-up's queen f8. So I think white's probably about an 1800 player. Again, I really have no idea, to be honest. Yeah, and then white played his position quite confidently, like h4. And then black cracked because he took the pawn because he didn't like the defence. And then I think at this point, but didn't he come from f2 earlier? So I think he thought that maybe this, did the game end in a draw? Let me see what he said. Oh no, black resigned after king f2. But didn't they have king f2 earlier? So why did black resign after king f2? Because he wasn't finding a way to, I mean, you could go to d2, probably that's winning anyway. Yeah, because oh, okay, no, but after this, because the point is after this check, you have this move, and then it's game over. So perhaps Black just realised that, and then just decided, I'm not going to bother. But I would at least play Queen H4, and then see if they find King G1. But overall, I would say if I had to guess, White was about 1800 level, and Black is a little bit weaker, but not much weaker. Like maybe 1700 level, but again, hard to say. Anyway, let's keep going. Let's get three more. But thanks for sending me that game, and that was from who was it? Jeffrey Byron. Has it got a game from Paul Wood? Paul Wood has sent me a game. I was also sorry. I got a game from Govrim Prabhu. Not sure where he's from. Okay. Copy game. So I'll put it in the main board, right? Okay, so he's given annotations for this game, but he's done it with a computer engine. It would seem, because you got like computer-like annotations. I would recommend for people not to use the engine to analyze their games. Try to do your own analysis. Let's quickly go through the game, and then we'll come back at the end and then say, what do we think the level was? Okay. Yes, interesting. This is called the English Opening Agincourt Defence. I don't know who that was named by. I've got a feeling it might be named by Nigel Shaw, because it's like a coward's variation, the Agincourt. It sounds like the sort of humour that he would come out with, because he also probably got an interest in English history as well. Agincourt, that was the famous battle with Henry V during the 100 Years' War, I believe it was. So that would have been back in the what year was Agincourt? I think it was like the 14th century, maybe 1315 or something like that. But I'm not sure. Once more, band of brothers. Once more into the breach, dear friends. So D3. Yeah, White's playing a bit insipid. Black is also playing. E4 feels like a mistake, because you're weakening D3. So I'm immediately thinking White is no better than, say, 1700 level, maybe lower, maybe 15. I'm going to say 1500, because I've given too many people. So I'll just say that my generic answer is 1700 for everybody, right? But it might well be that they're 1500, right? I'm going to say 1500 level, maybe 1300 level. No, they're probably better than that, because the theory understanding is quite good. But okay, so when E5 actually, that was decent. But maybe Black could have considered taking first and then going knight C5, because then E5 you could put the knight on a more aggressive square. But at this point, it actually prefers White. But of course, the evaluation is going down, because, yeah, it doesn't love what either players do. No, it thinks it's okay. Queen D3 doesn't love. Maybe that was a bit of a waste of time. But yeah, it's solid chess. Probably when I'm saying 1500, that's too low, right? Maybe that's way too low. I think this is like an Indian player, I don't know. But yeah, knight CA8 was quite a bad move. You should try B4. Queen A5, and then bishop F1. H4, H6, G4, Rook C6. So at this point, White's winning. Now, White wins quite decisively. Yeah, I think White is better than a 1500 player. It's hard to say how good White is. It might be a younger player, a younger Indian player, promising. It's hard to say. It's very hard to say. I've never heard of the name because I think it's somebody from possibly from India, and it's very hard to say because Indian players tend to be underrated anyway. But actually, the game. I'll just show you how the game finished. But also the person who's played quite poorly at times, made some quite serious blunders. So often you say, well, who gets Elo? But they're playing at that level, right? So there is an argument, even though White played quite a decent game, it's an argument the fact that they played that person in first place might maybe they're not that strong themselves. So I would guess that possibly, yeah, I think I'm going to upgrade them to 1700. But again, I have no idea. Please leave your comments down below if you are that person and you say, you know, no, I'm not 1700, Danny. I'm actually 2700. Thank you, and that's it. And maybe it's Gary Kasparov with a secret email. But anyway, right. So let's just do one more for today because I think I've lost the will to live. Who else? Because there's quite a lot of games. Please don't send me any more games because I'm overwhelmed by the number of games we need to get through on this. Please never send me any games ever again. Okay, this is from Ewan Hurd. Ewan Hurd 100. That's interesting. Ewan.Hurd. No, I shouldn't really give out his email. But it's Ewan Hurd 100 is his email. So let's go through this game. Let us go through this game. Where were we? Okay, new game. And then pace game. He was White in this game. So he's got 100 in his email. So does that mean he was born in the year 100? What happened in the year 100? It was 100 years after Christ had died, right? So he's possibly the oldest person alive. If that's true, he could well be the oldest person on the planet. Knight c3, a6. He was White. He took and went bishop f4, and then queen c2. Right, let's just go through the game quickly, and then we'll come back and then talk about all the different moments and you know what happened. Was this an over the board game? Oh, this guy plays like Keith Arkle. Right, he's playing Keith Arkle systems. Keith Arkle would be very proud of this game. Oh, okay. So the final position, I'm assuming it was agreed drawn because after king h4 c5 takes king e5, it's going to be a draw. My rough guess, without even playing any more moves and going back to these moments, is my rough guess is I would say White is about, I always say 1700, don't I? And I'm going to stick with about, I'm going to say about 1700. You know, maybe 1600. 1600, I reckon. Although actually plays pretty, the theory understanding is pretty good. And yeah, so all these moves are like kind of standard sort of stuff that you get in these kind of. I mean, they both played pretty. Again, like rookie c8, and that immediately makes me think this player is not that strong, because maybe I'm being a bit harsh here, but I don't understand why you would move. Your rook is developed. Why are you moving it to c8? That's like a reaction move. I don't like that move. So the fact that he can't beat this player, firstly I'd say like black, you know, to play that move can't be any stronger than say 1600 strength, maybe 1700 strength. And the fact he can't beat that player makes me think that White isn't that strong either. It's probably similar strength, right? Now, Karpov always used to place his rooks to centre. The thing is that one player that White has is knight a4, knight c5. Now, you can bring the bishop back to c8. However, there is a knight a6 tactic in all that. So, yes, difficult problems to solve. But if I don't really feel like rook e8 is the way to do it. But again, I could be wrong. And I think what White did was all excellent up to a certain point. Like even b5 here is fine, right? But okay, knight d7 was played. Now, okay, this is a critical juncture. For one thing, you could consider taking on c6 immediately. But I think what happened in the game is he just allowed too many pieces to be exchanged, almost. Now, generally, you want to exchange pieces when black has that structure. But I feel like if you'd have kept more pieces on here, maybe black would have had a harder time defending the position. So I'm guessing like about 1700, 1800 level, because the theory is quite good. They're playing quite sensibly the moves. So 70, maybe 1800. But I don't think they're 2000 level, because there's also like serious mistakes like rook e8 looks like a bit of a weird move. We could engine check it as well just to make sure, but I don't like this next move. I feel like black's position is passive. We're controlling f5. We could always go knight f5 at any moment because black probably won't go g6. What move that maybe, yeah, I mean the engine probably would say it's going to be a draw anyway, but maybe queen c5 is one option. Maybe I would just go h3. I'll just do nothing. You know, wait for black. Maybe I would consider maybe going e4 at some point. I'm not in love with knight f5 because I feel that black's got less space. Now I know that gives you a good option of attacking c6, but I think Keith Arkle is probably an expert in these kind of, certainly an expert in these kind of structures. He probably would have done that later. He would have gone for knight f5 later. Maybe I'll ask him about this position later on, because by this point I don't think White has really any chance of winning. There's just too many pieces come off the board. So let's think about the engine, what the engine's thinking. Because I feel like here, yeah, White has a very nice position. It even loves a5 actually, which is a lovely move. And yeah, you can get f3 and e4. So the idea of a5 just cripples the black queen side. Yeah, I didn't like rook e8. I really didn't like that move, and the computer agrees. But already black is clearly worse anyway. And I felt like the mistake that White made in the game was exchanging too much. So I feel like White is quite a promising player, but you know, lacks maybe the sort of like maybe a little bit of cultivation in terms of their positional understanding. If they could take that to a high level, that you know, I'm always available for coaching. But yeah, like f3 with the idea, you know, that's what Botvinnik would usually recommend. Queen f2, e4, a5. I'm not loving, and b5 is actually, weirdly enough, even though that follows the plan, it's interesting that b5 is not the best move because it gives blacks, you know, black is on a defensive, but you know, it's exchanging material. And this is very difficult for black to solve in the long term, this problem on the queen side. Like if you go b6, you weaken a6. You can't move the rook from b8 because you drop b7. So that was actually the critical, maybe b5 was a critical error. But I also thought later on, I didn't like knight f5 at all. Like any move, like even h3, I would, weirdly the computer prefers h4, it wants to put pawn on h5. I mean, what about my h3 suggestion? Doesn't hate it. I didn't like knight f5, yeah. So my instinct at knight f5 was wrong. So I feel like White's quite a solid player, knows a lot of theory, doesn't make any blunders. But given that, yeah, probably about 1700 level, I would say, is a good guess. I would say based on my analysis of this game, I would say they're about, mind you, I guess 1700 for everyone, don't I? This is why I'm probably going to give up this guess the moves sort of thing, but thanks for sending me these games, because also I can use these in articles as well and all that kind of stuff. But I'm probably going to stop the video there because I've got through so many games. And it's very kind of people to send me their games. I'm going to upload this video, and hopefully people enjoy the games. And don't take offence if I've said something offensive, because it's all just banter, isn't it? It's all just banter. I'm only joking. I'm not really serious. But yeah, I think White had a serious chance in that game. He had a good understanding of theory. He played all the correct moves, but at a key moment, it made some quite serious mistakes, and I think they're based on a lack of position understanding, if I'm honest. So if I were you, what's this guy's name again? Ewan Hurd. Actually, again, we could cheat, couldn't we? We could look up their FIDE rating, because Ewan Hurd, what's their FIDE rating? Possibly they've got a FIDE rating, a Ewan Hurd FIDE. Oh, it's got a FIDE rating. It's 1700. See, I'm spot on. I just say 1700 for everyone. They're all. He's born in 2002. So that means he's 23, possibly 24. It'll be 24 this year anyway. That's for certain. And yeah, if I was you, and watching this, work on your position understanding. Get books about positional play, patience. How to build up positions, plans, and everything. Anyway, I hope everyone's found this video useful. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that nonsense, blah blah blah, in your comments down below. And I hope you found it useful. And yeah, please keep sending me your games, even though, to be honest, I can't guarantee I'm going to do everybody's games, because it's a lot of, I've been overwhelmed by the number of emails I've got, and I can't do everyone, and it takes up. But these are good videos, aren't they? I think they're interesting. You talk about amateur mistakes. Why are people making these kind of mistakes? It's always interesting, to look from that perspective. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe.